First article up, Biden proposes $10,000 tax breaks for first-time home buyers and starter home sellers. The president has proposed a mortgage relief credit of $5,000 per year for 2 years for middle-class first-time home buyers, calling for a 1-year credit of up to $10,000 for middle-class families who sell their starter homes to another owner-occupant. Key definition there, owner-occupant,
That's right.
not to an investor. And there's some mixed opinions on whether the policy will help the housing affordability issues. I don't think it will help affordability at all, and it doesn't help qualification. I do think it helps popularity, and I do think it might help temporarily, but that's only if the people take those credits and apply it towards some other part of their budget they need to spend on.
Hey, you know, Andy, I like the way they call it. Why don't they call it what it is, a tax relief credit, right? Instead, they kind of call it a mortgage relief. How convenient. How convenient.
It's never too late, though, right? I mean, we only needed this a few years ago, but I think it's a good move for marketing and capturing some more votes or some more idea.
Well, but what it has to be applicable, right? Someone has to use it for it to matter.
The only thing was that I did read on there was like it will be helpful if it's actually been able to use as income. But if you do mortgages, and I think we all do mortgages, you need it to continue for more than 3 years for it to actually be used as a qualifying income.
Well, it's not continuous, right? It's literally saying it's going to end after a certain period of time.
And it goes on in the article say, like, unless you use it as income, then this really doesn't do much for anybody.
Look, you could say this is a bonus. Like, that's fine. If there's a history of you getting a work bonus from sales or whatever, like, okay, then you can plead to an underwriter or write an explanation or whatever. Oh, I get an annual bonus. Look at my last couple of years. That's just not what this is. This is a tax break on the back end somehow, which it only like retroactively becomes some sort of net benefit, but only if applied that way.
Yeah. Well, the way they're looking at it, and this is something the White House says is, giving this tax credit is equivalent to lowering your mortgage interest rate by 1.5%. You know, it's like, well, it's $10,000, 1.5%. Your purchase price is.
Not math, but
only
for
the time that you get the credit. So after that, it's not that. So I understand the angle here that maybe it's similar to a buy down, right? A 2-1 buy down or a 1.5% buy down for 2 years. That's fine. What do you do after that, right? You do what we've been talking about. Well, hopefully by the time you are into the house fully, you're making more money and you've managed expenses, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's fine. But again, this doesn't address the core issue that we're having with people, which is affordability.
It doesn't. But again, this is the purpose of that, right? Like, the purpose is let's help them, for equivalent to helping them by 1.5, and then how do we get more people into their home? So they're hoping with this tax relief, it's going to help 3.5 million families purchase their first home over the next 2 years. We'll see.
Well, okay,
especially with the shortage crisis that we've been seeing. It's just, I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
I think that's how many people it can be applicable to. There's not even that much inventory. Exactly. That's not even going to be the case. So I guess the question I'm curious and wondering, you guys, like, do you think people are going to do this?
Well, if it
not
passes,
if it doesn't benefit them in what way?
If it goes through, pretty much everybody's going to get it that are first-time home buyers, right? Or they also are passing on to sellers who sold their starter home or first home. It has to be based on the medium county limit. Yeah. So if it doesn't fall in there, then you're SOL.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I guess I'd say, like, I understand why it's being done on the political side. Mm-hmm. I do think that there could be a benefit if people actually can use this in an appropriate way towards recapturing some money on the tax side, because again, this is a tax credit only to offset any tax you might already owe. So there's that. Assuming you don't owe anything, then you'll receive the full tax credit. If you owe something, it's just going to reduce the amount that you owe. So I don't know what kind of net tangible benefit there might be for that. And the claim in this that as inflation comes down, then mortgage rates will too. Look, we are chasing inflation. We're not in control of it. We chase inflation, not control it. Exactly. And the idea is that, the Fed can control inflation. They're not controlling inflation.
Well, here's the other thing. Besides the inflation, this is also a refundable credit.
Yes, I know.
Right. So they have to pay it back?
Yes, they have to pay it back. If you consider this, so if you move out of the first year, right, and you consider it not your primary home, you move out of that home, it's no longer your primary home.
Catch-22.
Exactly. You're only good for 0.25% of that.
Right.
So if you move out in year 2, you're going to have to pay 75% back of that tax credit.
It's a clawback.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole idea is that you keep this property as your primary residence for 4 consecutive years.
Yeah.
I just feel like these in the back end, credits don't really help anything in the front end when we know that the biggest issue right now is inventory and income. So if you're not going to put more houses out there or, alleviate the things for builders to be able to, build freely, then this really honestly just kind of is just a mild symptom,
Exactly. Well, that's Biden's goal. Biden's goal is, and he says, build and renovate 2 million homes.
Yeah.
It will help increase supply. It will decrease rent prices, which we've been seeing is pretty freaking crazy. Yeah. And then it's also going to supposedly increase affordability because there'll be more supply, right? But that's kind of
supposedly, but affordability is connected to the market more like the 10-year yield versus a tax credit. Yeah. Because again, you're still only talking about this segment of people. This has nothing to do with people who are buying their second home or move up and are not considered a the home they currently have now is not considered a starter home.
Correct.
So this doesn't even qualify for those people. So it might be a very narrow selective sliver of people that are going to be able to use this actually in the end, whenever it gets to be whatever it's going to be actually written in. It would be awesome if there was I don't want to say down payment assistance, but if there was something more connected to the process of the purchase of the home itself that met the same definition of these people. Yeah. So if it is you're a first time home buyer, okay, cool. Then this is how we can help you get into a home. This is a retroactive thing that you still do all the heavy lifting on the front end to qualify for.
But later on, you'll get it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Congress sees it the way you see it, Andy. Right?
Well, yeah.
Because it still hasn't passed. It's there, and here's the thing: they didn't call it a tax relief because then that's going to cause an argument with Congress, right?
Well, everything is.
How can we make it a better discussion? We'll call it a mortgage relief. Like here, let's ease up to what it is.
So when they give out those stimulus, right? I feel like they should do something that in the front end, like, hey, we're going to permanently buy your rate down, giving you this amount of credit, right? Oh wow, that actually helps. You're actually saving me money in the front end. I don't care if I got that 7% rate and I get a $10,000 credit in the back end at the end of the year. I still paid that money.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, and I think that part of this is going to go along party lines. Like people who are who are with the president are going to go, yeah, this is great. People who are against him go, oh, this sucks anyways. Yeah. I think just when you scrape away that layer and you really talk about the mechanics of the financing of this, it could help some people. Like I'll admit, I don't know that on its face value it's of great value. Yeah. It is of some value. Well, I'll admit that.
The last time we saw that was back when Obama did I want to say it was a $8,000.
Yeah, the homebuyer tax credit.
And I was curious to ask, but I was in the industry back then, or
of course not.
I was graduating high school
Too.
Yeah. How did it work? Was it in the back end or did you get it up front?
No, it's up front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that helps out. Like
no. How could
it was a homebuyer tax credit.
It was a tax credit just like this. I'm sorry.
So you bought the house, you still forked out the money, and then in the back end when you filed your taxes.
In your taxes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So there's other issues that are plaguing us. I mean, when we know this because we see the premiums, especially here for California, when it comes to coverage and for insurance, where it used to be, let's say $60 a month, $80 a month for property and casualty insurance, and now it's $200, $300 a month. Like there's like a 4x, 5x cost increase. This doesn't offset those issues, especially for people in California. And I'm not necessarily saying this is going to help people in California because it still comes down to your income.
Oh my God!
Your debt to income, money down, all that kind of thing, and then still competing to get.
Well, the good thing is we have another article that's going to cover that's pretty wild.
We do.
It's pretty wild. Hey, but there are some exceptions. Okay, so the only way you could avoid not paying this tax credit is if you go through a divorce. Okay.
Circumstantially, yes.
Yeah, circumstantially, yeah. If there was a death,
divorce,
and then the other thing is if you are military, which we represent lots of military, and they get work orders, PCS somewhere else, then they're exempt from that.
Triple D, death, divorce, deployment.
Oh, there you go, the triple Ds. Yeah. So. I mean,
that's good to know.
There is
a way out.
There's kind of like this floating idea that this may help ease up inventory. I don't know that I see that.
No.
It might, let's say, coax some people to take action. Yeah. It may or may not. I mean, you're still talking about people having to make the decision of whether or not they're going to step into homeownership at the current market temperature and be able to hold on to it for that duration without having any problems unforeseen.
Yeah.
So again, I hope this works for people because again, for us as a business, that we always want the people to be able to get into homes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I kind of don't care what it looks like. If this helps people in the back end, so be it. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fantastic. If it doesn't and it flops, well, then you're going to pay the price.
and here's a good thing for people. There's no approval process. That's the other thing, right? When you file your taxes, there is no approval. Like here it is. It's strenuous. It's just automatic.
Yeah. And I
is a
mean,
good thing.
and maybe this is one of those angles where, and I know it doesn't say it in the article, but if we extrapolate this conversation long enough, in places where, or in circumstances where you're writing off the mortgage interest, you're deducting the mortgage interest, right? You're deducting your property taxes you pay, and you have a tax credit that actually could very much favor you, because if you have enough income that qualifies for a purchase, but then now that you own a home, you get to have more deductions and write-offs, then you're going to have less tax on paper that you owe, plus the credit work in your favor. So I get, if we continue this conversation down into the tax arena with tax people, they're going to say some of those things, and it's going to be true.
Yeah. I mean, here we are, guys. Again, how convenient, right?
Yeah.
We have election time. Like, this is another way. How do I look like a hero? When Brian said earlier, why couldn't we done this earlier?
Oh, it's the same way.
Strategic plays.
It's the same way every administration. Like, there's always something during the cycle where they go, okay, how do we appease people? Number one. And I remember, I don't know if you guys recall or not, but we talked about how every administration wants to see an increase of the percentage of home ownership. And that has been increasingly under duress in this administration because of the COVID after effects of rates and prices and inventory being low. And they've really struggled to get that home ownership rate up.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is a goal of every administration, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on.
The other thing that I want to make clear, that I kind of misunderstood your question, if it was up front, the $8,000, I want to say it was $8,000 immediately on the first year on your income taxes, whereas this one, it's year one you get $5,000, year two you get the other $5,000, right?
Yeah,
so it's not all.
I think that was it. Yeah.
And that's where I was kind of, I almost feel confident. You could.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but we'll pull it up.
I didn't look that one up for today. I was like, I just really want you guys' opinion on this more than anything.
What I will say to close out that last article is that I feel that home ownership, home prices, and the real estate market is the one thing where America kind of like we're all in the same boat here. Shit's expensive. Like, what's going on here? Like, as collectively, I don't care how much you're making money, you're still feeling it if your prices are going up and you're in a different tax bracket. But I feel housing is the one thing where America sees clearly, and we're all eye to eye. Like, something needs to get done collectively because we need places to live in affordably.
I like that.
Yeah,
it's so true.
It's so true. Like, honestly, like everything else is like, no, my opinion. This one thing, everybody's like, shit's too expensive. What are we doing about it?
Accessible housing.
Where's the solution?
Better prices.
And honestly, the way everything's looking right now, it's looking like home prices are going to surge. They're going to go higher. We're starting to see people. I mean, we put an offer in on a client, okay? And mind you, I have an excellent borrower, 789 mid-credit score, going in there with 30% down. It was at 920 and we offered 950.
Okay.
We called back, offer did not get accepted. So I'm like calling the listing agent, hey, Karen, what could we have done to get this offer accepted? She goes, listen, I wouldn't even buy the property at the price they offered.
What?
They offered all cash. And because they sold their other home, they had this tremendous amount of cash that they offered a ridiculous amount for the property. So these things are starting to see, and I think a lot has to do with FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out. Like, rates are a little more in our favor. What do we do to just tie down now? Because people are reading all this information that's going on, and it's being put out there. Not everything is doom and gloom.
One of the things that I've been seeing a lot more in the headlines is start switching the way that people look at rates. Instead of being so negative, like high rates, or like, rates are high, but that's not the biggest problem.
That's correct.
And that's what I really enjoy, like reading through these articles, that they're saying, hey, the rate's going to be just a temporary like hiccup. The housing and the income is the biggest issue here. But what I'm starting to see is that, hey, 13% new listings were up. And what I'm seeing is that people are starting to say, hey, I don't think I'm going to be waiting on the sidelines for things to kind of go lower, because as we've been seeing week after week, month after month, the numbers that matter have been all increasingly going up little by little, but they're still going up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we talked about this last week. All that waiting has not played out.
Oh,
if you waited for better rates, isn't working. Waited for better pricing, isn't working. Waiting for more inventory, maybe you got a shot now, but the other two still aren't in your favor. So there's
which gets us to the next subject.
Yeah.
So